Hello, this is Jim Malloy, Lexington Town Manager, and I'm presenting the fiscal year 22 recommended budget and financing plan, which is Article 4 of the annual town meeting. Lexington has experienced a significant level of financial uncertainty over the past year, including lost revenues from local receipts, uncertain levels of state aid, and unanticipated expenses, all related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the constantly changing landscape, the town ended fiscal year 20 in a strong financial position and has remained stable throughout fiscal year 21. For fiscal year 22, the town's proposed budget and financing plan is balanced, protects against the short-term challenges and continued uncertainties created by the pandemic, and addresses key select board priorities and long-term financial goals, including the use of the revenue allocation model and development of the town and school budgets, which allocated both town and school an increase of 3.8% over the fiscal year 21 budget. It set aside $2 million of free cash as a reserve against unanticipated reductions in state aid, local receipts, or additional pandemic-related expenses. It sets aside free cash into stabilization fund and other post-employment benefits, the OPEB fund. Continues robust investments in the town's capital assets and funding an increased amount with cash instead of long-term debt to recognize long-term savings. This is the general fund overall revenue sources. This table and chart basically show that 80.5% of total revenues comes from property taxes, 6.6% from state aid, 5.1% from local receipts, and then 8.2% from available funds, and then a minor amount from the enterprise receipts at 0.6%. This chart shows both our annual revenue growth and total revenues. We've had a steady increase from fiscal year 10 to fiscal year 22 in total revenues, going from 234 million in fiscal year 21 to going to 251 million in fiscal year 22. The orange line that goes up and down shows the annual percentage growth. And you can see from fiscal year 21 to 22 that it shows a sharp increase, which is in contrast to the fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 21 annual year-over-year percentage increases. However, as you can see in the note below, a large amount of that is due to the fact that we had set aside 3 million, little over 3 million, 3.25 million in free cash that was left unappropriated to deal with what might have been shortfalls created by the pandemic. Because of that was counted in the revenue growth for fiscal year 22. With that not being counted, the fiscal year 22 revenue growth goes from 7% down to 4.2%, which is slightly higher than what we see in the fiscal year 19 to 21 period, but is pretty consistent with what we've seen during that period of time. The Select Board's budget priorities and principles. First, the diversity, equity, inclusion goals that the Select Board has set. We've added a new position, which is being recommended in the Town Manager's office for a Chief Equity Officer. We're still working on the exact title. We have concluded the work on putting the position description together. This includes salary, benefits, and a small expense budget for that position. A 2020 vision survey. Town staff and the Vision for Lexington Committee, which was formerly the 2020 Vision Committee, will undertake a community survey to update and plan for the future as part of the town's continued efforts to address changing community dynamics. Pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle safety on town roads. Overall, $4,101,000 is recommended for the construction of new sidewalks, existing sidewalk improvements, and street improvements. On community mental health, continuation of the cooperative mental health program between the municipal and school departments, including the ongoing contract with William James Interface Mental Health Referral Services. On sustainability, the capital budget recommends 2 or more, if grants are available, electric vehicle charging stations at town buildings to ensure that the infrastructure will be in place as the town's fleet integrates electric vehicles. In addition, one of the police cruisers scheduled for replacement in fiscal year 22 will be a hybrid vehicle. Support for public safety. Police and fire departments reflect a multi-year program to replace mobile radio equipment that is nearing the end of its useful life. This will ensure that our police officers and firefighters are able to effectively communicate during emergencies. In addition, a capital recommendation supports replacement of the fire department's self-contained breathing apparatus. So the general fund budget by cost center. This table and chart shows that from fiscal year 21 to 22, the general fund budget is going from about 53.8% to 54%. The shared expenses budget is going down from about 27.8% of the overall spending to 27.6%. And the municipal spending is going down from about 18.5% to 18.4%. The education budgets, which are both Lexington Public Schools and Minuteman, are increasing from fiscal year 21 to 22 by about $5.3 million or 4.4%. The shared expenses are increasing from about 62.5 million to 64.6 million, an increase of about 2.1 million or 3.3%. The municipal departments are increasing from about 41.6 million to $43 million or $1.4 million increase, which is 3.4%. The overall budget is increasing $8,747,023, which is a 3.9% increase. This chart delves a little bit deeper into the individual departments on the municipal operating budget. The education budget is 54%, benefits are 17%, debt service is about 5%, public facilities and DPW are also about 5%, law enforcement about 4%, fire protection about 3%, library, human services, land use, and information technology all equal about 1% of our budget, and all of the other administrative departments equal about 3% of our overall budget. Capital improvement and debt management. Fiscal year 22 capital improvements include pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle safety, about $4.1 million. The center recreation complex bathrooms and maintenance building at $915,000. Other town and school building envelope and systems projects, $2.1 million. Town and school technology, about $1.3 million. And the Lexington High School feasibility study, which is dependent on MSBA acceptance at $1,830,000. On debt management, we have a recommendation to appropriate $2.8 million from the Capital Stabilization Fund to cover exempt debt, as anticipated during the override for the fire station, LCP, and Hastings. COVID-19 financial implications for fiscal year 22. The town has lowered our fiscal year 22 estimates for local receipts, including hotel and meals taxes that have been impacted by the pandemic, which is expected to continue into fiscal year 22, although we are hopeful that the vaccination program that has been rolled out by the Commonwealth will begin to curb that and shorten the impact on fiscal year 22. The town is providing additional support to the recreation enterprise in fiscal year 2 to maintain services. The fiscal year 22 recommended budget sets aside $2 million of free cash to provide financial flexibility and address further revenue shortfalls or unanticipated expenses related to the pandemic. The town continues to access funds from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and Federal CARES Act funding for qualifying expenses that are directly related to the pandemic response. Our reserve fund balances from fiscal year 2011, which were just over $11 million, have grown to fiscal year 20 to be $54,768,000. The large increases there are the other post-employment benefits, which has gone from 1.5 million to about 18.5 million. And the Capital Stabilization Fund, which did not exist until fiscal year 13, has grown to $25,229,000. Future considerations. The long and short-term impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on town revenue, expenses, and operations are still a concern. Future capital expenses are expected that include the construction funding for Lexington Police Station and the renovation or reconstruction of Lexington High School, both to be excluded from Proposition 2.5. Managing operating expenses to align with revenue growth is becoming increasingly challenging and may require realigning municipal school and shared expenses budgets in future years. Maintaining the operating budget within the confines of Proposition 2.5 and not proposing overrides, and impact of commercial development and the Hartwell zoning initiative on relieving the residential tax burden. Thank you.